And I do believe we actually did get another email while we were on the break. Let's go ahead and put that up. Okay, I was involved in a car accident. It is not disputed that the other party was at fault. My medical bills are $4,500. Lost wages are $4,500. The orthopedic surgeon has assessed a 5% impairment rating on my lower back injuries. I am a 43-year-old male. What would be a reasonable settlement? And that's from Dean. You know, Johnny, aside from how long is this going to take, the second question I get most often is, what is my case worth?
Absolutely.
And you always got to give them that lawyer answer,
That's
which
right.
is?
No idea.
It depends.
It depends.
It really depends. So,
that's right.
So go through kind of the analysis. When we're talking about valuing cases, obviously medical expenses and lost wages are an element of damages. But again, like we talked about earlier, those aren't the only damages that can be recovered. Right. So how do you go about valuing a case? And I have a feeling we probably go about it about the same way.
Yeah, when you evaluate these cases and the injuries in these cases, you got to look at how does that injury have an impact on you. So for example, if you have a low back pain and you have a 5% impairment rating, but you're able to do your job with no problems and your life is pretty much normal, well, that case won't be as valuable as someone who has a 5% rating that's making them change their career or completely do something direct opposite of what they were doing before, which enhances that, you know, pain and suffering, anxiety, depression that we were kind of talking about earlier. All those things drive the value of the claim. So it's really hard to put a value on a case based on just what was put up there by Dean, because we really got to know who he is, what is he doing, how does this accident and the injuries from that accident impact his day-to-day life.
Right, and I can tell you, this actually kind of leads me back to the question I was answering the process when we got the email that came in, and I completely broke off of that, talking about when I was an insurance defense lawyer. When I first started out, you know, people used to kind of say, well, you got $4,500 in medical bills and $4,500 in lost wages. That's $9,000. We'll give you $9,000 and we'll give you another $2,000 for your pain and suffering. Sign this release.
Right.
And some people will do that.
Absolutely.
And they think, hey, great, I got an extra $2,000. But what happens?
Well, you know, you
sign a release and?
Yeah, when you sign the release, it's over. And there's been some studies, and I haven't seen them in a while because the insurance company wants to keep them quiet, but I've seen studies where it said that, you know, clients with lawyers helping them in their injury cases can typically get clients about 9 times more than if the client can get on his own. So just that, if that is true, then you would want to hire a lawyer, a personal injury lawyer, every single time if we can create that value. And we really do see that a lot, where clients come in with a low ball offer, and then we take it and do the things that we need to do to enhance the claim and get the claim in a proper position, and then we tend to get a lot more money than the insurance company ever offered. Right.
It really is a multiplier when you have a lawyer involved. And so, you know, you think about it on one hand, well, I'm going to have to pay a lawyer a contingency fee, which, you know, in Florida, the standard contingency fee is 1/3 of the recovery before a lawsuit is filed. And that can be a lot of money. And I certainly understand people saying, well, you know, why don't I just do it on my own? And save myself 1/3 of the overall recovery. But what they don't realize, you mentioned that study, I've seen similar studies in the past, it is definitely a multiplier to where even if you end up having to pay an attorney a contingency fee, you still typically end up getting a lot more money you know, for your injuries than you would if you try to go it alone. And that's simply because this is what we do for a living.
Yeah.
We know how to file lawsuits, we know how to try cases, we know the process, we understand the claims process, we understand how to read insurance policies, you know, and not just that, but one of the big, and this is really a big trap if you try to represent yourself, what happens when you make a recovery and you're on Medicare?
Yeah.
Or you're on Medicaid, or maybe you're in the military and you have TRICARE? You know, making a recovery can trigger certain obligations if you have these types of benefits, even a private health insurance policy.
Right.
There are certain obligations that can arise if you make a recovery that if you don't practice in this area, you may find yourself on the receiving end of a lawsuit because you impaired somebody's right to a recovery. Why don't you, talk about that?
That's correct. And you know, Medicaid, Medicare, if you don't pay them back, they're going to suspend your benefits at some point, and then you could owe the government money back for not paying them like you're supposed to. So there are a lot of pitfalls. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing with any injury claim is just realize once you submit that claim to the insurance company, they have a team of lawyers doing everything they can to defeat your claim or minimize it. Where a plaintiff lawyer, a personal injury lawyer, is going to do everything they can to increase the value of that claim. And so where we bring value that oftentimes exceed what we're charging in a fee is that we know what these cases are worth, we know what a broken bone's worth, we know what a herniated disc is worth, and if you're doing this on your own, you have no experience, the adjuster who you're dealing with or the defense lawyer is never going to tell you that, hey, I just paid somebody else $100,000 for that case, but I'm only going to offer you $10,000. You don't have anybody fighting for you. So the best advice is get a lawyer, get a personal injury lawyer, and get that lawyer as soon as you can after an accident.
Right, and if you do end up having to try the case, I mean, you have a constitutional right to represent yourself, but there's an old saying that the person who represents himself has a fool for an attorney, and those are very true words. And it doesn't mean that you're dumb if you do it or you're a stupid person. It just means that there are so many hoops and hurdles, just basic rules of evidence that you have to comply with in order to get certain facts and exhibits entered into evidence. That's something that we go to law school, we go to school for a long period of time to be able to practice and have a license, and we have to sit for a bar exam, and we have to take continuing education. So we're up on the latest legal trends, and it's a lot of work. And so, but that work is what offers you that value by going with an attorney.
And also, too, hiring an experienced lawyer that knows what they're doing is going to make your life a lot easier. It's going to make the case go a lot quicker. Right. You're going to get a better recovery for it. And then the only thing you have to do is worry about going to the doctor and getting better. Right. Get over your injuries. So you're not worrying about talking to adjusters. And one thing that we hear all the time from clients that the reason they hire us, they call the adjuster and the adjuster never calls them back. Right. Well, the adjuster will typically call the lawyer back a little bit quicker. So hiring a lawyer is going to take out some frustration, move your case a little bit quicker, and you're going to get a better resolution without any cost to you until we recover the case. Yeah,
that's what I tell my clients. The number one thing is all you need to focus on is getting your treatment and trying to get your life back together so you can move on and let us handle all the claims aspects. So